Happy Monday, everyone. Carmen Broxma here with Choose Joy with Carmen. And today's card, we are going to be focusing on the Flowering Rain Boots stamp set that I used last week, but we're going to be using more of the stamps from this set this week. And also focusing on the Flowering Fields Designer Series paper that we also that I showed last week and that we used on last week's card. These are the two designs that we're going to be using on today's card. And the reason why I'm focusing on this is because when I think of spring, which yesterday was the first day of spring, and that makes me so happy because basically that means that we are heading into summer and more daylight. And I guess from what I read on when it's the first day of spring, we have an even, well, about approximately 12 hours of daylight and 12 hours of sunlight. And now for the next 3 months until we reach the summer solstice, we are going to start getting more and more daylight every day. And that's what really makes me happy. But when I think of spring, also, I think of rain and getting ready to work in our gardens and stuff. And so the reason why I wanted to use this set, because I love these rain boots. I think they're so cool. And so I am going to try this technique on, I wasn't sure, but I wanted to somehow make them shiny because to me that is what's so cute about rain boots is all the designs and the shininess of them. So I'm going to attempt to do that in today's card. So let's go ahead and get started. But before I actually start on the card, I want to show you a technique that I came across. Well, I knew the technique, but I was trying to decide what, what colors I was going to use. And one of the ink pads was a little too juicy of ink for me. And I want to show you that before I actually get started on the card. So let's take a look at that really quick. So as I was designing today's card, I was trying to decide what color to use to stamp on what cardstock colors. And I just wanted to show you this trick that I noticed. So I'm going to ink this up in the So Saffron. And I'm going to stamp it on the So Saffron, even though this is not a color that I used. But I just wanted to show you something. So I'm going to ink it up and I'm going to stamp it on here. And I want you to notice that when I do this, that to me, it's really blobby, kind of, I guess is a good word for it, because I think the ink is really too thick on the stamp pad. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this little technique. And what you do is you move the ink off, a certain area and just kind of take that extra ink that's sitting on the top, either by spreading it in better or moving it off completely. And then we're going to try it again and see if the results are better. And I'm just using a bone folder that I use for spreading the ink. I know that some people use plastic spoons, so whatever technique it is that you use. Okay, so now let me go ahead and just kind of clean this off and make sure that it's clean again. And we're going to try this again to see if it looks differently now that we've moved that ink around. So I'm going to go ahead and ink it up again. And hopefully this will look different. So stamp that down. And I'm not doing a lot of pressure. I'm just trying to get the ink on there. And to me, it is a little better. I can see more of the detail in the stamp than the one on the bottom. See, the one on the bottom is just glumpy all over, like in those darker spots, but the one on the top shows a little more detail. I don't know if you can notice that at all. And maybe I need to spread that ink off a little more, and we could definitely try that to see if it improves it any. And let's just do that. Let's just give it a little more taking off of that extra ink and see if it gets any better. And I noticed that especially in the summer when there's more humidity, I have a problem with my ink pads being really, really wet. So let's see if this looks any different. Just gonna ink that up there. Take it over to here. Press it down. Oh yeah, definitely much, much better. Much better. I mean, I think. Don't you see the difference? I mean, definitely. It's getting a lot, you're being able to see, because this is kind of like a distinctive stamp and it has the shading already included in it. But if you've got too much ink on your ink pad, then it tends to just look like a big old blob. But definitely much better if you can see the difference between the three. So I just wanted to show you that little technique there before I show you the actual colors that I use on today's card. Alrighty then. Okay, so I hope that little trick helped you. I don't know if you have the same problem with your ink pads getting too wet, but that's what I do and that's what I have learned. So let me show you. I did all my stamping ahead of time because I don't want to bore you all, but I went ahead and stamped the rain boots in the Poppy Parade on this designer series paper. And I'm going to be die cutting this out. But then we're going to be also using this piece for the card, and I will show you that. And then I wanted 3 different color of tulips. So I went ahead and stamped on the fresh freesia. I stamped in rich raspberry, and I did this straight on. I didn't off stamp it or anything, so I like that. And then for this one, I did stamp off because I thought the Poppy Parade was a little too dark of a red for me. So this is the Poppy Parade stamped on the Petal Pink cardstock. And then I stamped instead of the So Saffron, I didn't really, I wanted to add a little more color, so I stamped the Mango Melody on the So Saffron. And then as far as the leaves go, I just did Pear Pizzazz on Pear Pizzazz. And I really like that because it gives it that, it's a little darker, but I like that because the paper that we're using is this one. And if you notice, the background is a lighter green, but the stems are a little darker. So even though this is Pear Pizzazz on Pear Pizzazz, it gives it that darker look that I was looking for. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to take all these over to my die cut machine off camera, and I'm going to die cut them, and I will be back so that we can get the card put together. Be right back. Okay, I'm back with all my die cutting. So now we get to assemble this beauty of a card. So I'm going to pull in my silicone mat because the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make these boots that I die cut shiny. And the way I chose to do that is I also die cut a piece of window sheet with the die, and we're just going to put that on top of our boots, and then they're going to be shiny. So the best way that I could think of doing it, there was a couple ways, but I was going to try this way. One other way would be to put Versamark ink on this and then emboss it with clear embossing powder. But I didn't really want to go down that road, so I decided to try this way. So what I am going to do is I'm going to put some liquid glue up here in the corner, and then I am going to take my sponge and I am going to start putting this glue all over the back of this acetate or window sheet. And then that way, if it's everywhere, I would think that once it dries, it would dry clear and you wouldn't be able to see the adhesive. So I'm going to go ahead and get this totally with lots of adhesive on the back here. And I'm going to try to make sure I have kind of like an even pattern, just in case we see it. It would look like it was part of the boot. So there we go. So now I'm going to turn this over and adhere it to our boots here. And the good thing about the liquid glue is that we have some wiggle room. Well, if you get it going right to begin with. So let's try to get that lined up better than that was. And oh my goodness, it's sticking more than I want it to, but we're going to do our best to get this evened up. And I don't think that looks too bad. And if you had some extra that you didn't like, you could probably just, cut it off with your scissors. But we're going to go ahead and give this a try. And I got a little bit of glue on there. So later I might take some, maybe, what do you call it? The goof off or whatever to try to get that off of there. I don't want to use the, that eraser tool because I think it would mess it up. But we're gonna clean that up here in a minute. But anyway, that is how I'm going to make my boots shiny. So then our next step is going to be to put our flowers that we're going to put inside together. So what I did is, since I wanted 3 different colors, is you just pick whatever color you want, however you want it, but just pick one of them for your base. So I'm going to pick this one for my base. And I am going to just add a little bit of adhesive just on the tips of each of these stems so that we can get this first layer of tulips down. And then I'll show you what I did to add the other colors. Okay, so now I'm going to kind of just line it up with the tall one here. And once I get that where I like it, it seems like it just falls into place for the other ones. So there we go. We've got our first set of tulips on there. So now let's pull in the other tulips that I have. And so now I'm going to snip off with my paper snips here. I'm going to snip off. I think I'll do the purple on this side. So I'm going to just snip it off these 2 right here. And you can kind of get rid of that little extra there. And now I'm going to put some adhesive on the back of here. Actually, I'm going to put it on here where I want it. So let me get in the camera better here. I'm going to put the glue on the base here. And then I'm going to go ahead and adhere this right to the bottom of that one. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the pink ones here. So I'm just going to cut that in half, get that off of there, and then put some adhesive to this side over here because that's what I cut off, and adhere that here. So now I have a bunch of tulips in 3 colors. There we go. There's our tulips. So now I'm going to go ahead and put these on the boot. And here's the cool thing is, I don't know if you can tell, but right there is, I mean, this bottom here is kind of flat here and here. And so it just kind of lines up perfectly with that inside the boot there, kind of like right there and there. But because I want to make sure that it looks like it's coming out, I'm going to snip off right, so I don't want that border down here. So I'm going to snip it off right where the ink starts, because I want it to really look like it's inside the boot. And with that extra Pear Pizzazz cardstock there that's not inked with the stems, I didn't like that. So I'm going to snip off that little bit there. And then when I go to add this, I just feel like it looks more like, you know, they're coming out. And I guess what I could do is, there's this little spot right here. I could even snip that, and it would even make it look more like it's a bunch of, yeah, stems coming out of there. So, yeah, I think that's good. So now we're going to go ahead and I'm just going to put some glue at the very bottom of this. Let's get back in the camera here so you can see where I'm putting the glue. I'm just going to put a little bit at the bottom here on both sides, because I think that'll be enough to hold it in. And if not, by the time we add it to the card with the way I'm going to put it on the card, I'm sure it'll be fine. So I'm going to just take that flat edge and kind of line it up there, and then it automatically lines up with the flat edge on the other side. So there we go. I just love that. Okay, so now let's get all this. And then you have these left over so that you can use on another card. You would just need to make a different base. And so you could just keep making a bunches of tulips. Okay, so now let's go ahead and work on the card. So I'm going to take the piece that I die cut the boots out from, and I'm going to go ahead and put some liquid glue to the back of this. And I'm doing the liquid glue so that I have a little bit of wiggle room. And go ahead and get some of this glue on here. And then we're going to go ahead and adhere that to this side of our Pear Pizzazz piece here, trying to get a nice even border on all 3 sides the best that we can. Okay, there we go. And then, oops, then I'm going to go ahead and get our other piece, and I won't, like I said, I'll always have the dimensions on my blog. And I'm going to go ahead and put this down, and I'm going to focus on lining it up with the edge of that Pear Pizzazz, because I'm not going to be too concerned with where they meet because we're going to put another strip. So we'll hide that seam anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and be more concerned about getting it even on all 3 sides, and then making sure it lines up with that other piece that's there. But if it's not cut totally evenly, see, you can see a little strip of green down there. We don't worry about that because I took another piece of that same designer paper, but I'm using the back side now, and I took a 1/4 inch of that, and we're just going to place this right down that seam, and that way it'll kind of cover up the seam. Okay, turn that over. And I'm going to place it as close as I can to the red side because I want to try to avoid covering up too many of the tulips since we don't have much of that designer paper on there. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead, and this is pretty much done. I'm going to go ahead and since I already have the liquid glue out, it's not my favorite, but because everything's so sticky, I seem to get my fingers everywhere. I'm going to go ahead and put this on with the glue because it's handy. And we're going to take our So Saffron and fold it in half. And I don't know if you've noticed, but whenever I fold it, I feel, and sometimes see if you look real closer, that the front is a little longer than the back. And I always make that the front. So like if you go to open the card, you'll have that little flap there. This way, the flap gets in the way and then you'd have to, it's hard. So I always make sure that the longer side is my front. So that's another little tip there. So now let's go ahead and get this adhered to the front. Trying to get the best border that we can. And then we're going to use our Stampin' Dimensionals. Now I really want this to pop up. So I'm going to use 2 layers of Stampin' Dimensionals because when I pop this up, I want to kind of be able to see that green underneath there. So I'm going to turn this over and we're going to start putting dimensionals on the back in various places. And then I'm going to also remove the backings and then add another layer so that we can have that double layer of dimension. Now when we get up to the tulips, we may have to switch over to our mini Stampin' Dimensionals. So, and you know, if you want, if you put this like right there, it's going to help hold that on there anyway. So that's always something to think about. So let's go ahead and add some of the minis to the back of the tulips because I think on the other card that I did, I added the larger ones and it was really a tight hold in there and I don't want to be able to see it that much. Okay, so now we're going to take the backings off. And then we're going to add another layer of dimensionals right on top of them. So let's go ahead and get some more of these mini ones and put them on top of each of these now that we removed and exposed that adhesive. There we go. And there we go. So I was talking about, you know, spring, and I thought, well, you know, yesterday was the first day of spring, and then today it's snowing out there. But I just noticed it's really melting a lot. So it has a lot of water in it. So there's a lot of like puddles in the street. So it's getting to that time where, you know, we're going to have more puddles, and that's why I wanted to do the rain boots because, you know, it's just fun that way. So now I'm taking off the backings of the larger ones and then adding another layer of dimensionals. And then we'll have this double layer and it'll just pop up a little higher than normal. And that's what I was looking for. So let's get these on here and then remove the backings. So if you make a lot of these cards, you're going to go through a lot of dimensionals. But the other thing, what I've seen others do is they die cut the foam, like that fun foam, with adhesive on one side, but I would have to die cut the boots and the leaves and the tulips all separately. So I thought, well, we're just going to do it this way, even if it's a little tedious. Okay, I think I've got everything pulled off. So now I'm just going to set this right where I die cut it out on the card. And there we go. And there you go. It's popped up, and I just love that look. I love that dimension there. I like how it's popped up. Now, I already took a piece of basic white and I stamped the rain or shine, I'm here for you. And I used the Banners Pick a Punch and punched it out to give it that edge there. So now I'm going to pop this up, and I'm only going to use one layer on this one. And I'm just going to put two. And then I'm going to slide that in here where the point meets the edge here, but, you know, puts it right underneath the boots there. So there we have that. Now I already did the inside because I knew the front was going to take a while. So what I did was I stamped every storm that comes also ends at the bottom, and then I put a strip of that designer series paper. But before I did that, I stamped some of the Mango Melody tulips, and then I put that down, and it looks like they're poking out of there. I really like that. And then it says, our friendship is naturally beautiful. So that's going to go on the inside, and let's go ahead and get that adhered. And then last but not least, I want to add some embellishments to the front, and then this card will be done, and I really like it a lot. So let's go ahead and get this on the inside with a nice even border on all four sides. And I think the inside is just as beautiful as the outside, and that's why I like to decorate the inside. And then I'm going to take my favorite brushed brass butterflies, and we're going to put some of them on the front of this card because these are my favorite embellishments, but I love butterflies, so it's no wonder that they're one of my favorites. So I'm going to go ahead and take probably a large one, and I think I'll put it, you know, up here somewhere, maybe in that direction, and then we'll follow it up with a couple of smaller ones, like they're following their mama. And I'll just maybe I'll even put one on one of the tulips. Wouldn't that be cute? I'll put it right there. Oh, how cute that is. Look at how cute that is. Oh my goodness, I just love it. And so there we go. And so we got our shiny boots, because that's what I love about rain boots. And then we got those tulips. I just think this is a gorgeous card. So rain or shine, I'm here for you. Our friendship is naturally beautiful. Every storm that comes also ends. So there you go. There's another episode of my MoJOY Monday. And if you are a returning subscriber, I appreciate you so much. If this is your first time to my channel and you enjoyed this card and want to see more, I would appreciate it if you'd subscribe to my channel. And if you want to, you can click on that bell icon to get notified when I upload a video, because hopefully now that I get my taxes done, I'm going to hopefully start uploading more videos. I'm just a little busy right now, although I say that I'm going to do that, but then it's going to come the yard work, right? So I'm going to do the best that I can to start to add more videos. I just, you know, there's just always so many other things to get done. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed this week's card, and hope you have a wonderful week. I think it's going to start warming up here in Colorado or in our, at the end of this week, which is lovely. And so you all have a great week, and we will see you again next Monday for another episode of my MoJOY Monday. Have a great one, everyone. Bye bye.